Bob Danzig is truly an American success story. During his career, he went from office boy to CEO of Hearst Newspapers, overseeing its 6,000 employees and colleagues. During Bob's tenure at Hearst, the Pulitzer Prize-winning company experienced a revelation of talent and reputation. Drawing on his life journey from foster child to senior executive, Bob has created inspiring and uplifting keynotes and presentations, as well as becoming a distinguished author. It's been said of Bob Danzig that he's one of those magical people who, when he enters a room, he fills it, and when he begins to speak, he owns it.
You are worthwhile. You are full of promise. Those two sentences, those 8 words, transformed my life. And what I want to visit with you about today are the common powers you share to transform those audiences you are privileged to touch. So that's what we're going to be about. But first, I'll give you a little tiny commercial about my company, a little bit more about me. The Hearst Corporation is 117 years old. We have 140 businesses. We have 20,000 employee colleagues. We're the largest monthly magazine published in the world. So if you've ever read Good Housekeeping or Cosmopolitan or Red Book or Popular McCann's or Town & Country, Harper's Bazaar, Country Living, Colonial Homes, or the new Oprah magazine, you've given us the privilege of touching you where you live. And we have 27 television stations. All over the nation, those viewers give us the privilege to touch them where they live. And we're the 6th largest newspaper company in America, with papers in Houston, San Antonio, San Francisco, Seattle, my old hometown of Albany, a bunch of other papers around. I think we have 29 newspapers. And the only reason I give you that little profile is because I think what drives us as a company drives you. We are simply a place that gathers talent. Talent gives us every single entity we have. And what this room is, above all else, is a room full of talent. We share that with you. But just as we treasure our talents, we treasure our customers, because they're what give us a business. The talent gives us an entity, but customers give us a business. And when you treasure your clients, you are nurturing your business. I grew up in 5 foster homes. I never had a family. And when I moved from my 4th to my 5th foster home, the social worker on my case, her name was May Moore, so I can see her as if you're here this morning. Tall, angular, grayish, blonde lady. And at the end of our little discussion about my moving to this next home, she reached over, she took my hands, and she said to me, I want you to never forget, you are worthwhile. And every time I met with her during that year, she ended every discussion we had with the same comment. Never forget, you are worthwhile. It was like warm milk pouring over me to think that I had some sense of possibility and promise. Now, let me tell you how to get to be ahead of a big company. Step 1 is to get fired from your first full-time job. Because in the foster care system, when you graduate from high school, and I graduated at 16, and I know what you're thinking, this guy must be smart as can be. Graduated at 16? No. See, you know people graduate at 16 because they're smart. Well, when I moved to my 3rd foster home, they put me in the wrong grade. And I just drifted through these grades. So at 16, I got out of high school. I thought I was smart. I wasn't smart. It was just a mistake. So the foster care system got me a room in a house, and they got me a job at a Montgomery Ward store in the wholesale mattress department. And in that department, there were bins full of mattresses with numbers of B4 and C8. And you'd climb up these ladders, and they had catwalks, and the foreman would call up B5. And you'd push that baby off, and it'd come down and land on a trampoline with wheels. They'd bring it out to a customer. So I went to work there in May. By September, I'm pretty fast up the ladder across the catwalk. It was a Friday afternoon, and the foreman, I swore he said C8. And I pushed that baby off, and down it came, no trampoline, foreman. And I had my first corporate consequence. He said, get out, you're fired. So I went to a dance that night, met a high school buddy. He said, what are you doing? I said, I just got fired from Montgomery Wards. He said, that's a contradiction in terms. Nobody gets fired from Montgomery Wards. You just have to have a warm body and show up. I said, well, they're the C8, the foreman. He said, well, you know, I'm the office boy at the local newspaper. I'm being promoted to clerk. He said, maybe if you come down Monday morning, I can get you considered for my job. But he said, you know, you look so young. It would help if you wore a hat. So I went to the Snappy Men's shop on Central Avenue in Albany, New York, and I bought a hat. And down I went Monday morning. Now I got to tell you, I don't know in your business is what the lowest possible job is, but in the American newspaper business, the lowest possible job is being the office boy in the circulation department. There's no urgency to hire this person. They had a little ad in the paper, so I get down there. There's 9 guys in front of me, and I'm standing in this office about an hour and a half. Now, when you've just been fired from your last job and you've only been to high school, you really don't have a resume. You have a little piece of paper with your name and social security number. And I stood there an hour and a half. And finally it came my turn. This little lady came up to me. She looked like a pit bull. Toughest looking little lady I ever saw. She took my little piece of paper and she said, I want to ask you a question. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, why are you wearing that hat? And I said, my friend told me I looked too young. She said, but you've been in this office for an hour and a half. When you're in an office, you're supposed to take your hat off. And I said, I never had a hat before. I didn't know what to do. I'm convinced she hired me because I didn't know how to take my hat off. But that little lady, Margaret Mahoney, did something someone has done in your life. She took an interest in me. And one Saturday when we were covering the complaint phones together, she said, I want to see you in my office. I said, my God, I'm going to get fired twice in 4 months. But in I went, and I sat down with her, and she said, I've been the office manager for 15 years. She said, I've been observing you. And she said, I want you to know, I believe you are full of promise. It was like a tattoo on my spirit to hear those words. You are full of promise. As I went off to college nights for 6 years, I went off to Stanford University on a journalism fellowship, and as Nancy said, 19 years later, I was the head of the newspaper, and a few years later in New York, the head of the company. I've never stopped hearing her words. And when you share the gift of your words, you etch them on your audiences. You give them new senses of possibility. What a treasured gift that is, that all the talents in this room share. The etching of your words on a permanent basis on those you serve. But if you're lucky enough to have a few people cross your path, and at that moment you're open to receive them, they profoundly influence your life, all right? I've often thought about this, about what would have happened if Mae Morris and Margaret Mahoney hadn't touched me. You are worthwhile, you are full of promise. I think about that. I think about it in terms of our obligation to be a source of at least word touch and emotional touch for those we are privileged to guide.
There are few speakers who can entirely captivate an audience. Bob Danzig is one of them. Whether the message is one of hope for an individual or guidance for a corporation, Bob's great joy is being able to lift the spirit of others by sharing his experiences. He has a refined sense of mission to give back to others. It's a calling he welcomes. Furthermore, Bob's lecture fees and book profits are donated to charity. Bob speaks to thousands of people around the world, but yet Bob Danzig isn't just a speaker. He's a messenger, offering insights into possibilities.